If you're the only one trying to save your marriage right now and you feel more exhausted and frustrated every day, pay close attention because I'm going to show you why you're actually in one of the best positions to save your marriage if you do it right. No more pleading with her to try with you. No more sacrificing yourself and your values as a last resort because you think it will please her and hope she changes her mind, but learning how to reset the entire emotional dynamic when you are the only one showing up, which will change the way she feels around you and open up the path to her jumping on board and having a great relationship with you again. So in this video, I'm going to break down why, despite feeling hopeless, it is way more effective to start saving your marriage alone, what the actual cost of chasing mutual effort with her is, and I'll give you my one-person reset framework that will start you down the path to reconnection more successfully than any mutual effort ever would. Just before we jump in, if you appreciate me making videos like this, let me know by gently tapping the like button. I want to first touch on why it feels so dangerous to be the only one trying. When your wife pulls back emotionally, your body and everything inside you starts to read it like a countdown clock. That makes every quiet moment with her feel loaded, and when you go through each day without making progress, it feels like you're losing time very, very quickly on that clock. So that leads you to do what most men do while in that state when they're trying to do anything they can to save their relationship. You apply a bunch more effort. You start to initiate more conversations, clarify intentions with her, and basically try to get her to fix the relationship with you. On the surface, it genuinely looks like commitment to showing awareness and growth in order to turn the relationship around. But you and I both know internally something else is driving all that added effort, and that is anxiety. And anxiety has a way of disguising itself as dedication. Think about driving a car down the freeway and you're sort of in a daze and your car starts to drift towards the shoulder, but instead of grabbing the wheel to straighten everything out, you floor it and put the gas pedal to the metal. You're accelerating your car right off the road because there is no proper direction to the intensity you just added to the car. That is what extra intense effort without stability looks like when you're in a marriage crisis. I understand why this happens because it happened to me and it has happened to almost all of the men I've coached, but you cannot confuse effort with stability. The assumption that if you're putting in more effort to things you thought were lacking on in the relationship and it's going to make her feel safer sounds very rational. But because that effort is fueled by your fear of loss, it's doing way more damage when you try to bring her back. But why is there such a devastating cost that most men don't understand when they are chasing mutual effort from her to save the marriage? Well, I'm sure you've heard it from a variety of places in a variety of ways, but a lot of the mainstream advice from family, friends, media tells men that you both need to be willing to work on it. And that is a fair thing to say because ultimately you can't force somebody to do something. There has to be some, even if it's tiny, some level of willingness in the other person to want reconciliation. But, and this is very important as to why the "it takes two" advice is often a facade and doesn't have any depth to it. If one person is already emotionally disengaged, insisting on mutual effort as a starting point to save the relationship has the opposite effect the overwhelmingly majority of the time. The reason for that is if you step into her shoes, all that pushing for reassurance and commitment from her does not feel like teamwork. She's already emotionally checking or is already checked out. So it just feels like another heavy, stressful, pointless obligation that you were putting onto her shoulders. If you need her buy-in before you can calm yourself and start making really positive changes for you that will ultimately help the relationship, you're outsourcing your center. And because she's intuitive enough to feel that, you've now become associated with more heavy emotional responsibility and not with relief and leadership. It's just another thing she has to manage when she's already tired of hoping that things will change and they don't, and she has to continue to manage that. That being said, I want to give you the one-person reset structure that helps you understand what emotional leadership looks like when you're alone in it and show you why it is the best path to reconnection and where to put your effort instead of hopelessly trying to get her mutual effort to save your relationship. The one-person reset is about resetting who you are being in the emotional system, regardless of how she is showing up. It has three main shifts that you have to focus on to get everything back on track. The first shift is internal, and it's making sure that you solidify your internal stability before external repair. Right now, the relationship, and more specifically the status of where things lie in the relationship, is probably acting as your emotional regulator. If things feel uncertain between you two, your anxiety continues to spike. That is not sustainable if you want to not only save your relationship, but make it a long-lasting and happy one. Internal stability means you have to stop using the up and down roller coaster status of the relationship to dictate how your nervous system reacts. You have to be okay with not needing immediate resolution and feel fine with that. When you do this, it helps conversations become calmer because you're not trying to get somewhere. It will help you listen to her more without mentally rehearsing your responses because all you care about is steering the conversation to a resolution that you can feel good about. Being grounded and internally stable doesn't mean you have to be a tree and do nothing, but you don't have to act with such anxious urgency. You don't have to be passive when you're internalizing stability, which is important when we talk about shift number 2. Shift 2 is direction without demands. The second shift is where leadership actually becomes visible. Direction does not come from speeches or ultimatums or emotional explanations. It comes from being consistent. You become clear about what kind of relationship you are participating in, not by trying to convince her about how you show up. One of the biggest mistakes men make is that they reveal the strategy to her. They over-explain to her why they are changing and start to point out all the growth that they're going to do. You can definitely communicate to her that you realize you've not been showing up as you should be and you're going to change that. But when you're giving her the play-by-play and breaking down the roster and trying to prove all these things to her, it just means you're looking for her acknowledgement. When you do this, it starts to quietly turn leadership back into persuasion again. So you want to make sure you're leading from direction without demanding you see the immediate results from doing so. This means your tone and presence changes around her, and she will start to feel that before she even understands that. And the importance of this is defined in shift number 3, letting her respond without managing the outcome. This is probably the hardest shift to make because once you stop chasing and explaining to her, which were the things that made you feel like was effort and that was going to change your relationship, some space starts to replace that, and that's going to feel uncomfortable at first. When you stop trying to manage the outcome, you stop monitoring her every reaction and scanning for signs of how you can control how she processes things. Because you're no longer trying to manage the outcome, it no longer feels like you're auditioning to be her husband again. You don't realize you're doing it when you're trying to persuade her, but you're constantly presenting evidence for why you should still be chosen by her. Once that goes away and you're no longer doing casting calls for your own marriage, you can start to build polarity back because you're showing up to be a better man for you first. She's no longer feeling pressure of having to evaluate all your evidence, and because of this, she can naturally process her feelings and start to witness you as being a consistent new presence. This is how the dynamic returns naturally, and she starts to gain attraction for you again because the dynamics make sense from an energy standpoint if you're making her feel safe by being a leader. You're removing that emotional weight that made closeness feel very, very heavy to her in the first place. Reconnection doesn't start with desire, but the relief and possibility for safety to return and attraction to reemerge. The problem is, most men quit this phase too early. Early on in the process, it will feel like nothing is happening. Because the process does not give instant results, it can feel a bit brutal at first. Men think it isn't working, so they go back to their old patterns. The importance of not focusing on an outcome means you continue to be consistent with stabilizing your internal self without requiring any validation from her. This is the foundation of respect. Her nervous system will start to begin processing your new presence, and it might actually get worse before things get better. She has cognitive bias built up about how you've been consistently showing up in a negative way, not being the leader for some time. So when you start showing this new presence, she is going to test you, and generally that is driven by that cognitive bias. And she's testing you to see if this is actually a new you or not. This is why you cannot quit like a lot of men do, since they think it's not working just because the wife doesn't jump into their arms the first time they show up like a calm masculine leader. Don't be like those men. Pride yourself on making the changes and sticking with them, getting better every day. It will do wonders on your life and her attraction. This approach works for men who are willing to lead themselves emotionally. You have to take a look at yourself in the mirror and ask if anything you've done has worked at all to this point. And the most likely answer is going to be no. Everything I mentioned in today's video is the reason why those things don't work. And unfortunately, too many men live their lives not really understanding how women operate emotionally and how in being an impactful leader is the important part of the relationship from a masculine standpoint. If what I'm saying resonates with you and you have realized you have to do something different that you would never have thought of, and you're committed to becoming someone different inside the relationship as well, then the next step is exactly what you should do right now. I put together a free masterclass where I break down this entire blueprint to saving your marriage alone in a structured way, including the step-by-step pillars that allow men to rebuild connection with their wife. The best part is you don't have to get her buy-in or convince her to go to therapy or counseling, or even need her permission to start doing something impactful that will change you and your relationship forever. You just need some clarity and direction. So click the link below in the description to go watch that free masterclass today. If this video helped you see things in a new light, go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe to the channel as well. I will see you in the next video.